It's April 28th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with North Korea's troop deployment to Russia. The North on Monday confirmed for the very first time that it has sent troops to support Russia in Moscow's war against Ukraine. And what the North claims is under the Pyongyang-Moscow Mutual Defense Treaty. Former Democratic Party leader Jae-myung has been nominated as the party's presidential candidate for the June 3rd election after winning nearly 90% of all votes in the party's primary. The People Power Party is aiming to announce its presidential candidate with the goal of finalizing the results of the primary on Tuesday. A massive explosion at the largest commercial port in Iran has killed at least 40 people, with more than 1,000 injured. Local investigators suspect chemicals stored in shipping containers caught fire. North Korea has officially acknowledged its dispatch of troops to Russia to fight against Ukraine on Monday, just 2 days after Russia did so, and the latest effort by the two allies to justify the military support. Our Hampyeong starts us off.
North Korea confirmed for the first time that it has sent troops to support Russia's war efforts against Ukraine. Citing the North ruling party, the state news agency KCNA said Monday that the troop deployment was ordered by leader Kim Jong-un himself, who made the decision under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty, which he signed with Russian President Vladimir Putin last year. Article 4 of the treaty says North Korea and Russia shall immediately provide military and other assistance to the other party if it falls into a state of war due to armed invasion from an individual or multiple states. Kim Jong-un reportedly hailed those deployed to Russia as heroes and representatives of the honor of the motherland. And the KCNA also cited the Central Military Commission of the regime's ruling Workers' Party as saying the deployment of troops showed the firm alliance between Pyongyang and Moscow, as it declared Russia's victory in a battle to liberate the Kursk region. This comes after Russia on Saturday local time confirmed that all Ukrainian troops were forced out of the western Russian region of Kursk with the help of North Korean troops.
I would like to separately note the participation of the servicemen of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the liberation of the border areas of the Kursk region, who provided significant assistance in the defeat of the wedged group of the Ukrainian armed forces.
South Korea's intelligence agency in October of last year assessed that around 12,000 North Korean troops have been deployed to the Kursk region. The news also comes as Kim Jong-un is likely set to visit Moscow for Russia's Victory Day celebration in May, and as U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met in Vatican City on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral to discuss a potential ceasefire deal. Haempyeong, Arirang News.
Shifting gears to the presidential primaries here in the country. As widely expected, the Democratic Party's frontrunner Jae-myung has secured his second presidential run as the party's candidate for the 21st June presidential election. Our political correspondent Shin-Young reports.
Jae-myung has been confirmed as the DP's presidential nominee after winning 89.77% of the vote.
No surprises as expected. The Democratic Party wrapped up its presidential primaries on Sunday with a victory for former party leader Jae-myung. According to the DP, he won the votes of over 90% of party members and delegates and over 89% in a public poll of 1 million people. With both results weighted 50% each, he secured 89.77% of the total vote against his two opponents, Yeong Soo, former Gyeongsangnam-do Province Governor, and Kim Dong-yeon, current Gyeonggi-do Province Governor. It's the highest figure ever recorded in a presidential primary among DP-affiliated candidates. Lee told reporters that overwhelming support comes with overwhelming responsibility, and he feels a heavy sense of duty. Kim Dong-yeon came in second with 6.87%, followed by Yeong Soo with 3.36%. Jae-myung, who stayed as the frontrunner throughout the primary, is now running for president as the Democratic Party's candidate for the second time following his presidential bid in 2022. In his acceptance speech, he blamed himself for losing in the last presidential election and vowed to win this time.
The people and party members have given us a chance to build a new country, a true Republic of Korea. I will win and take back the government. I promise to build a new Korea full of hope and energy to repay your trust.
During his 2022 presidential campaign, he emphasized redistribution policies, but in his second run, he has shifted his focus to economic growth and a pragmatic approach to leading the country. He also emphasized his focus on national unity. He kicked off his first day as a presidential candidate with a visit to the Seoul National Cemetery on Monday morning and will later hold a meeting at SK hynix headquarters on AI memory semiconductors. 신하영, Arirang News.
Now, the People Power Party primary is still going on, with the voting for the second round opening on Sunday. The results will come on Tuesday, but whether there will be a runoff is still a question. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
The People Power Party on Sunday began the voting process for the second round of its presidential primaries. This will run for 2 days, and if one of the four contestants, Yeong Soo, Han Dong-un, and Hong Jun-pyo, gets more than 50% of the total votes, he will be the presidential candidate. If not, there will be a runoff for the top two. The competition will be decided by votes with 50% of voters eligible PPP members and the remaining 50% coming from an open survey. Meanwhile, on Sunday, the contestants pushed for their candidacy. Yeong Soo, seen as the most conservative and appealing to the older generation, revealed his pledges for virtual assets, including cryptocurrency. He's looking to make it so that government and financial institutions will be able to invest in them. Han Soo first had a press briefing at the National Assembly pleading for support, saying he's the only one to beat the Democratic Party of Korea's candidate Lee Jae-myung before visiting his hometown, Busan. Han Dong-hun traveled around the capital region meeting with local politicians and PPP members. He said he will give 200% to beat Lee Jae-myung and ask for votes to finish the primary in this round with more than 50% of votes. Hong Jun-pyo took to the streets to meet with citizens, especially younger ones, on the streets of Hongdae, a popular hangout area for students and young people. There, he appealed to those in their 20s and 30s to favor him the most among the PPP contestants. The talk of the town continues to be whether acting president and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will declare candidacy. The window is closing, as if he wants to run, he has to step down from a public post by May 4th. As the acting president's candidacy is being requested by some PPP supporters, all PPP primary contestants have said they will merge with his camp if they become the PPP presidential candidate, seeking the supporters' votes. As for the final result of the primary, if the race ends in the second round, it'll be announced on Tuesday. If there is a runoff, it'll be announced during the party's convention on May 3rd. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's finance minister Choi Sang-mok said Sunday that trade talks with the U.S. last week eased uncertainties and opened the path for orderly consultations. The finance chief made the remarks upon arriving at Incheon International Airport, returning from the U.S. capital, where he held trade talks with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, alongside Seoul's Industry Minister An Duk-gun. According to Choi, Seoul clarified the agenda items and laid the groundwork for future negotiations. The finance minister also said that he fully explained to the U.S. side about the upcoming snap presidential election and the need for cooperation with the National Assembly on the tariff talks. U.S. President Donald Trump's approval rating has reached the lowest for any newly elected president at 100 days, mainly due to the rollout of his aggressive tariff plan. Why is he taking the risk, and what does that mean for South Korea? Let's turn to Professor Greg Butchek. Welcome back, Professor Butchek.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
So it's been less than 100 days since Trump returned to the Oval Office, and his 41 approval rating is the lowest, like I said, for any newly elected U.S. leader. Why is he rushing through his tariff policies at this time?
Right. So in the 2015-2016 campaign, Trump made these very big, surprising promises, not only in the tariff context, but sort of on all kinds of policies. Once he was in office, though, he didn't act on many of them, especially right away. And it wasn't until about 2 years that he imposed tariffs on just a small share of U.S. imports. And many of them were actually rolled back in later trade deals. So in retrospect, it sort of became clear that Trump was very constrained by moderates in his own administration, like Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, by the Career Civil Service. There's even a story that Gary Cohn, who was his chief economic advisor, sort of once yanked papers off of Trump's desk to stop him from pulling out of a trade agreement. So let's contrast that with his second term. I think Trump and his supporters kind of learned from that experience. They've been much more deliberate about staffing the administration with loyalists and people who will act quickly to sort of get ahead of the bureaucratic inertia that slowed him down the first time. And they've also been sort of attacking the executive bureaucracy and administrative state, what Trump kind of derisively calls the deep state directly. In other words, they sort of knew what the obstacles were and they had a plan to overcome them right away. Now, the other piece of this is kind of the timing around the U.S. electoral cycle. Now, everyone, I think, including Trump, expects that tariffs are going to cause some short-term pain. The administration wants that pain to sort of play out early before midterms in 2 years and the next presidential election in 4, so that voters might start seeing the benefits later. Now, I think there's a lot of disagreement about whether there actually will be any long-term benefits, but Trump and many in his administration do sincerely believe that whatever we get in the longer term will be worth the short-term cost.
Well, good news for countries around the world is that there is just a 90-day tariff pause for now. Professor Butchek, would you say that's Trump's own deadline to resolve that trade deficit issues he's been talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I really think this 90-day pause is about setting the tone and pace of negotiations. Trump loves deal making, and the tariffs pauses, these deadlines, they're all sort of part of that process. I think it's keeping pressure on the counterparties and perhaps giving local firms time to sort of plan where they source and manufacture their products. Trump, as even in his administration will admit, he's pretty unpredictable. So it's hard to guess where this goes if the deals fail to materialize. My best guess is, while part of Trump's stated motivation here is to reshore U.S. manufacturing, a big part of it is also trying to build a coalition to counter what Trump sees as some Chinese abuses on trade in other areas. So if he doesn't get what he wants after 90 days, I think his reaction is going to depend on sort of who he's negotiating with and where they stand with China.
Well, for South Korea, Seoul and Washington are looking to draw up this July package, but to realize a package deal that works in favor of South Korea, what would be crucial for Seoul to appeal to the U.S. in negotiations in the coming weeks or even months? What do you think?
So I think the tariffs on U.S. allies like South Korea are really bargaining tools. Trump doesn't ultimately want to impose them. I think he's using them to bring countries to the table. Part of it is he's looking to build this trade coalition against China and also score some sort of big headline wins that he can show voters on U.S. manufacturing and energy. So, if South Korean firms agree to build more cars in the U.S., partner with the U.S. shipbuilders, buy U.S. gas, Trump can kind of look at these and sell them to voters as a big win that was brought about by tough negotiation. Now, I do think a lot of these deals would actually be mutually beneficial without the threat of tariffs hanging over them. But, Trump likes this style, and using this pressure lets Trump kind of claim that he was this big, tough, successful negotiator, which plays very well to his image domestically and among his biggest supporters.
Well, Trump himself mentioned shipbuilding and LNG as bargain tools for South Korea. Now, based on the consultations held last week, will South Korea's LNG imports, though, be enough as a leverage for South Korea to find a breakthrough in the whole Trump tariff policies?
Sure. So I think you're referring to something that's on the table, which is this Alaska liquid natural gas project. So Trump is trying to get South Korea, Japan, Taiwan to invest and commit to buying natural gas that's extracted in the far north of Alaska. So the big advantage of this is Alaska's obviously much closer to Asia, And in particular, shipments from Alaska, they don't have to pass through the Panama Canal, while shipments from Houston, which is sort of the normal liquid natural gas port, they do. So shipping from Alaska would reduce shipping times from about 30 days to about a week. Liquid natural gas from the U.S. is also sort of this potentially politically attractive thing from the South Korean side because it kind of avoids sourcing energy from more unstable suppliers like in the Middle East. They tend to have also more flexible contractual terms for historical reasons. So why does Trump like this? So Trump wants to boost U.S. energy, and a project like this is very, very visible. It's very tangible, and Trump seems to love these very visible and tangible things. To give you kind of a funny example, when I was in Chicago for grad school, there was this big Trump condo hotel building downtown that said Trump on it in very big letters. And people who lived there fought over and over to try to get this name taken off, but Trump would work very, very hard to keep the name on his building. And I think that's really emblematic of what Trump likes and what Trump cares about. Anything that has this flavor is very appealing to him. So, you know, the LNG deal, is that enough? It's hard to say, but it definitely has the flavor of the kind of deal that Trump really likes.
That's a perfect example that shows his character. Now, last but not least, South Korea did make a counterproposal to establish a consultative body with other Asian countries last week. The question is, how feasible is this idea, realistically speaking?
So, you know, the idea to form a buyer's club for natural gas that kind of strengthens the negotiation hand against the U.S. when it sells natural gas. If it works, South Korea would definitely benefit from being able to negotiate on lower prices or other more preferential terms. But keeping a buyer's club together is pretty tough. So even OPEC, which is kind of the seller's version of this, has struggled in recent years because of divergent interests among the members. And as I'm sure you're aware, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, and so on sometimes have very different interests. So I would expect similar difficulties here, but beneficial if they could pull it off.
All right, Professor Butchek, thank you so much for connecting with us. You enjoy the rest of your weekend there.
Thank you. Take care.
A deadly explosion at a port in Iran on Saturday killed dozens and left over 1,000 others injured. Now, reports point to the possibility of chemicals used to make missile propellant being behind the explosion. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
A massive explosion at the port of Bandar Abbas on Saturday killed at least 40 people and left at least 1,000 others injured. According to eyewitnesses and surveillance footage, chemicals in an area with shipping containers caught fire, setting off the massive explosion. According to the state-run Islamic Republic news agency, quoting an Iranian official, the explosion was likely due to containers of chemicals, but the official did not elaborate on what type of chemical. Iran's national oil company also explained that the explosion was not related to refineries, fuel tanks, or oil pipelines in the area. The deadly explosion on Saturday was also a grim reminder of another massive explosion in Beirut nearly 5 years ago. The similarity in the smoke created from the blast also shed light on what type of chemical could have been involved. Video and images from CNN showed orange-brown smoke rising from the port, suggesting that a chemical such as sodium or ammonia was involved. The New York Times also reported on Sunday that a person with ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said what exploded in the incident was sodium perchlorate, a major ingredient in solid fuel for missiles. Other experts have said that ammonium nitrate was behind the deadly blast, the same chemical involved in the 2020 Beirut explosion. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, for those of you here in Korea looking to enjoy the most out of the spring warmth, how about a butterfly festival? Our Park Kwon-woo shows us a glimpse of the Spring Festa.
Busy and colorful wings flutter through the air, signaling the full arrival of spring. And there's no better place to experience it than at South Korea's biggest butterfly festival in Hampyeong County, Jeollanam-do Province. Celebrating its 27th edition, Hampyeong Butterfly Festival showcases around 200,000 butterflies of nearly 20 different species. Among them, the Korean tiger swallowtail has been named the Butterfly of the Year. Caterpillars, larvae, and other fascinating insects also add to the festival's charm, making it a rare opportunity to enjoy nature up close. After the festival kicked off on Friday, People from all over the country visited to enjoy not just the winged insects, but the vibrant scenes of spring.
My friends and I are all over 70, but we've been here since early this morning, feeling as excited as if we were 18 again. There are so many flowers, butterflies, and even people. It's such a joy to be here.
It's really fun to see butterflies I've only seen in books. There are so many kinds like the cabbage white butterfly that I know, and I actually got to see them today. I hope more people can come and enjoy them too.
The festival isn't just for observing, as it's filled with intriguing activities to encounter butterflies, including feeding them using floral bouquets.
Nabiya, Nabiya. One of the greatest things you can try here is releasing a butterfly, so I'll be trying it myself. As I do it, I'll be sending off my greatest wishes on their wings, hoping they'll spark a new, beautiful butterfly effect. Now go, fly away.
While butterfly populations are in decline globally, especially down by 22% in the U.S. over the past 2 decades, Hampyeong has worked hard to keep its ecosystem thriving.
Instead of collecting butterflies from the wild, we raise them using selected breeding stock. To thrive, butterflies need host plants for caterpillars and nectar plants for adults. And this clean and natural area of Hampyeong offers both in abundance.
He stressed that the combination of natural resources, expertise, and sustainable practices is making Hampyeong an ideal place for both the butterflies and the festival. Offering visitors a colorful spring escape with butterflies galore, the festival runs through May 6. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News, Hampyeong.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tammy.
So Ji-hee, why don't we start in the Middle East, where Israel conducted an airstrike on Beirut. Tell us more.
That's right. Israel conducted an airstrike on Sunday, targeting a Hezbollah facility in southern Beirut. Now, this airstrike comes despite the ceasefire established in 2024 November. It destroyed a building in the Dia suburb of Beirut, which the Israel Defense Forces identified as a Hezbollah precision missile storage facility. No casualties have been reported. Before the strike, the IDF issued evacuation warnings to residents, advising them to maintain a distance of at least 300 meters from the site. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun condemned the airstrike and called upon the United States and France, co-guarantors of the existing ceasefire agreement, to intervene and prevent further hostilities. Another Israeli airstrike earlier this month in Beirut's southern suburbs had killed 4 people, including a Hezbollah official. In Vancouver, Canada, a vehicle drove into a crowd at a festival celebrating Filipino heritage, killing at least 11 people. On Saturday at approximately 8:14 p.m. local time, a black SUV entered a pedestrian-only area where the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival, an annual celebration of Filipino culture, was taking place. The vehicle accelerated into the crowd, killing at least 11 people and injuring more than 20 others. The victims' ages ranged from 5 to 65, according to police. The driver, a 30-year-old Vancouver resident known to have mental health issues, was taken into custody after being detained by bystanders at the scene. Police stated that the suspect acted alone and there was no evidence suggesting acts of terrorism. India conducted long-range precision missile tests to demonstrate military readiness on Sunday as tensions between India and Pakistan flared following a deadly militant attack that killed 26 people in Kashmir on April 22nd. India has since announced a series of measures to downgrade its ties with Pakistan, including suspending a key water-sharing treaty and closing borders. Pakistan responded by canceling Indian visas and closing its airspace to Indian aircraft. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif issued a strong warning on Saturday, stating that Pakistan would respond with full force if India decides to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty. Finally, in Rome, the Vatican opened Pope Francis' tomb to the public on Sunday. The late pontiff, who passed away on April 21st at the age of 88, was laid to rest at the Santa Maria Maggiore Church with a single white rose and a simple inscription of his name, Franciscus, on his stone tomb. The simplicity reflected his commitment to humility and simplicity. Thousands of mourners visited the site, lining up to pay their respects. Following the funeral on Saturday, which drew approximately 250,000 attendees, the College of Cardinals began preparations for the papal conclave, which is expected to begin between May 5th and May 10th.
We are starting the week with beautiful clear skies and warm spring sunshine across the country. However, with the air getting drier and strong winds picking up, the risk of wildfire is growing, so we need to be extra careful. Right now, a dry weather warning is in place for mountains in Gangwon-do province, as well as Gyeongsang-pukdo province, and a dry weather advisory is issued for the rest of the eastern regions and even here in the capital. And it's a bit cool start to the day. Inland regions, including Ponghwa, had morning low temperatures in the single digits. But by the afternoon, we'll see a pleasant warm up. For a closer look, Seoul gets up to 20 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Gyeongju both topping out at 24 degrees under sunny skies nationwide. Air quality will be decent in most parts of Korea all day today. Looking ahead, we do have rain in the forecast for Thursday nationwide. But until then, the clear and dry conditions will persist. So please, let's be extra cautious with anything that could start a fire.
That is all we have for this morning. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful start to the week.